Hi there, and welcome to What Sex Education Does My Youth Get at School? An overview of sex education programming for middle and high school in the Chapel Hill-Carrboro City School System. Some objectives we have for you today are identifying your youth sexuality educators and community agencies providing sexuality education, understanding the sex education programs offered at school as well as the topics covered, and exploring how you can support your youth's sex education at home. All right, to just give you some introductions for who your students are working with and learning from. My name's Haley Leva, and I'm the Rape Prevention Education Program Manager at the Orange County Rape Crisis Center.
And my name is Leslie Massicott. I'm the Teens Climb High Coordinator at Compass Center. And also at the Compass Center, we have Valerie Sauer, who's the Director of Education Programs, who also assists with sex education programming in the school district.
Great. So now we're going to give you an overview of both of our agencies and what we do inside the school systems and beyond. So OCRCC, the basics, here are our contact information, our address, as well as our office hours and our 24/7 crisis line. So we have a crisis line by phone, by text, and we have a chat button on our website now. So those are some ways you can get in touch with us for support. And here's a little bit expanded out some of our services. We can group them into these three big sort of buckets. So our crisis and advocacy services for survivors all across the county and beyond include our 24/7 helplines. Like I said, our online and text lines are now live, as well as our 24/7 phone helpline. We provide medical accompaniment to survivors, as well as legal accompaniment, free legal consultation, and all of our services are free and available in English and in Spanish. Under therapy and wellness, we provide, again, free and bilingual therapy, support groups, self-care workshops, case management, help navigating all of the resources in our communities that help survivors. And on the outreach and education side, we provide our Safe Touch programming in elementary school, our Start Strong programming in middle and high school, which we'll talk more about, training for professionals, parents, custom presentations, and we're available to table at your events.
The Compass Center is another organization that provides sex education in Orange County. And this is our contact information and address. We're located in the center of Chapel Hill. We also have a 24/7 crisis line. We primarily serve folks who are experiencing domestic violence. And the Compass Center came about as a merger in 2012 between the Family Violence Prevention Center and the Women's Center. So about 7 years ago, we became the Compass Center. And our mission is to help folks navigate their journeys to self-sufficiency, safety, and health. Like the Orange County Rape Crisis Center, our services fall into three buckets. The first is self-sufficiency services. So we provide legal information, workshops, appointments with volunteer and student lawyers. We provide career services, which can include things like helping with resumes, interview skills, etc. We provide financial education on budgeting, credit, FAFSA, etc. We also have support groups for non-domestic violence individuals, including things like divorce and separation or a self-esteem group and lots of others. We also are part of a program called the NC Diaper Bank. So we provide diapers Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 12 to 2. We also provide menstrual hygiene products and adult incontinence supplies through that program. And we also, within this section of our agency, have partnered with a group called Wheels for Hope, which is a faith-based organization in Raleigh, where we refer a certain number of clients yearly to receive a vehicle. There is certain criteria that clients must meet for that. We also offer domestic violence crisis services. So as I mentioned, we have a 24/7 crisis hotline that folks can call. We also provide emotional support, safety planning, individual advocacy, We also accompany folks to go through the court process. We offer support groups. And for lots of our domestic violence services, we offer services in Spanish. We also have an emergency housing and mental health programs to provide options and support for folks who are experiencing domestic violence. And then last but not least, we have our youth empowerment and community education section of our agency. And in this department, we offer community presentations and tabling, as well as professional trainings about domestic violence. And then we have our Start Strong and Teens Climb High programs that serve youth in the community.
Great, so this is an overview of the youth programming that both of our agencies provide. We sort of go back and forth, so 6th, 8th, and 9th grade Compass Center sees your children, and then OCRCC comes and sees them in 7th and 9th grade. So we sort of trade off giving different but related information. So in the 6th grade, the Compass Center will visit your students. They'll be seeing Valerie, and they're in a two-day program about healthy relationships as it relates to friendships. In 7th grade, I will see your students as part of the OCRCC for a four-day program as part of the Start Strong program on flirting versus sexual harassment. In 8th grade, they're back with the Compass Center with Valerie for 2 days, talking about healthy relationships as it relates to dating and dating partners. And in 9th grade, they see both of us, so I'm with them for 2 days talking about consent and communication, and they're with the Compass Center with Leslie and Sierra for 8 to 10 days, talking about sexual health, HIV, STIs, pregnancy prevention, etc.
So both the Orange County Rape Crisis Center and Compass Center work very hard to ensure that our sex education programming aligns with the North Carolina health standards. So we look at all of the different standards for the various grade levels, and I've included an example of the 9th grade standards, health standards here for you all to see. And so we make sure that our programming aligns with all of these different standards and then the related objectives. So in our programming, we're making sure that we're covering interpersonal communication and relationships, so making sure that our students are gaining negotiation and collaboration skills, talking about healthy dating, making sure that we're promoting abstinence and safety in terms of sexual activity, covering things like STI prevention, sexually transmitted infections, and making sure that our students know the various methods of how to prevent unintended pregnancy. And so we just want to make sure that you all are aware that we are very carefully matching these and making sure that our programming is responding to those standards of the state.
Great, so this is how the Start Strong program is broke down in terms of content. So again, the Start Strong program is a collaboration between both of our agencies. So again, they're with the Compass Center in 6th and 8th grade, and we're with them in 7th and 9th. So in 6th grade, again, they're talking about healthy relationships as it relates to friendships, so sort of what they value and how to make their friendships as healthy and communicative as possible. 7th grade, again, we're talking about flirting versus hurting. We talk about what is sexual harassment on day 1, and they have an opportunity to identify different types of sexual harassment and reflect on what they have seen and heard about. Day 2, we're with them talking about gender stereotypes and flirting and what those things have to do with each other, and how gender stereotypes can lead to sexual harassment. On day 3, we're with them talking about media literacy, so they get a chance to look at some pieces of media and reflect on how stereotypes and messaging about flirting and dating are disseminated through media. And on our final day with them, we talk about bystander intervention, so talking about ways to keep themselves and each other safe and intervene when they see sexual harassment happening. In 8th grade, they are back with the Compass Center talking about dating relationships. So again, identifying what would make a positive and healthy relationship for them. And again, talking about communication as it relates to these things. So that's kind of a common vein throughout the whole program. And then we end with them in 9th grade talking about consent and communication. So we define what consent is. They get to talk about what a positive sexual experience would be like for them and talk about their values as it relates to sexuality. And again, talking about communication as a really key skill here.
So in Making Proud Choices, we provide this curriculum in 9th grade, and we go for about 8 to 10 days, depending on the school, and we present this evidence-based curriculum called Making Proud Choices. And this is the sexuality curriculum that we use, and this is what we cover in that curriculum. So the first session that we do with the students is just a getting to know you introduction session, and we frame the whole program around dreams and goals that the students have so that they can really frame their behaviors around what they want to accomplish in life. The second session that we hold is on HIV infection. So we provide a lot of different facts about HIV, how it's passed, how to prevent it. Next, we ask about their attitudes regarding sex, HIV, and condom use. So making sure that students are thinking about what's important to them, what they value, what are myths, what are facts about these different topics. Then we move into strategies for preventing HIV infection, and we introduce a program called Stop, Think, and Act, which is a strategy to be able to stop, think, and act through a difficult situation in order to make a choice that's right for them. Then we move into talking more about sexually transmitted infections, the different types, how to prevent them, how to get tested. Then we talk about pregnancy and different contraceptive options and ways that students can abstain from having sex in the first place so that they don't have a pregnancy when they don't want to. Then we talk about developing condom use and negotiation skills. So students learn what condoms are, how to use them, and then how to negotiate for their use if partners are putting up barriers. And then we end the program by really reinforcing the refusal and negotiation skills surrounding condom use. So the students are able to engage in role plays where they practice having a discussion with a partner to reinforce how to communicate their needs and wants surrounding condom use. So we're going to go through a couple sample activities that we provide in these programs. The first one is called Relationship Bingo, and this is one that at the Compass Center we provide in 8th grade. We provide a similar one in 6th grade, but this one for 8th grade is particularly about dating partners. So we encourage them to think of an ideal dating partner, either for themselves or for a friend. And then they think about characteristics that they think are most important in a partner. So is this trust? Is this open communication? Is this honesty? And then they add a characteristic that they think is super important that isn't already listed. So again, getting them to kind of think critically about what is important to them in a dating relationship. That then leads into a discussion on deal breakers and deal makers. So what are the things that are just absolutely cannot happen with a dating relationship? That is your deal breaker. And what are the things that I absolutely want to have and to see in a dating partner? And those are your deal makers. And so we encourage them to think about that before engaging in dating relationships so that they can really take the time to think through what is important to them and what do they need to have in their relationships to have a healthy and safe experience. In the condom lineup, we offer this activity through the Making Proud Choices curriculum in grade 9. And so they will have already gone through the different steps of how to use a condom correctly. And this is a game that we play with them to reinforce what those different steps are. So when we're in person, we would divide the students into groups. And in those groups, they have a stack of cards with the steps listed on them of how to correctly put on a condom. And they have to work together as fast as they can to put those steps in order. Virtually, we've had to kind of switch things up because we're all in a virtual space now. And so we give them a website that takes them to a game where they have to drag the different steps into the correct order of how to correctly put on a condom. So we are still responding to making sure that the students have access to sexuality education even during this time of virtual learning.
Great. So activity that we do in the 7th grade Start Strong curriculum. So this is day 4, the Bystander Intervention Day. So at the very end of this program, we give them a chance to do some hands-on interaction with the material through scenarios, and this is a group activity. So by this point, they would have already gone through the whole rest of the 7th and 6th grade curriculum. So they've talked about healthy relationships in terms of friendships. They've talked about flirting versus harassment, media literacy, gender stereotypes, all of those things. So we close out with them in 7th grade with these scenarios. So in the classroom, they would be in groups of 4 or 5, and they would have a chance to talk through each scenario and think about what an effective strategy might be for them. And we give them some sample examples of what they could do into these 3 categories of standing up. So directly confronting a harasser would be an example of that. Showing support, so asking the victim what they need would be an example of that, and getting help, so telling a teacher or a parent or an administrator or a social worker or somebody like that. So yeah, they get to evaluate this as a group and then share out to the group. In the virtual space, we've, again, had to be creative about this. So we've done this in breakout rooms on Zoom. We've done this using various, virtual platforms where they're able to submit feedback and we can see it as a class. And yeah, we're just trying to stay really flexible to each teacher and school's needs and interests and what they think will be relevant and helpful for their students.
So while both Haley and I, and Valerie also, we absolutely enjoy our jobs and enjoy teaching our students about sexuality education, we do all firmly believe that parents are a child or young person's primary sexual educators. So there are lots of ways that you as parents can both supplement and reinforce what your children or young people are learning at school. So here are just some tips for how to talk with your kids about sex. The first is begin early. It's actually never too early to start talking about some of these things. You can start talking about family, you can start talking about good touch, bad touch, you can start talking about communicating and being clear on what you want and need. You can also make sure that in your conversations that you're communicating your values. So because we teach in the public school system, we are not enforcing a certain viewpoint on your kids. Instead, we're encouraging them to think about their family's values, to think about their own values, and be able to work that into the topics that we're talking about at school. And so you can reinforce that as well at home. Being open and honest with age-appropriate information is very important. Instead of being vague or dancing around the subject, it's really important to be clear and to be open and honest with information with your kids. Make sure also that you're listening. A lot of times adults think that we need to lecture or provide an onslaught of information when actually our kids just kind of want to have us listen and hear what concerns that they have about various topics. If you're not quite sure what they're asking or what their interest is, don't be afraid to ask questions. Ask them lots of clarifying questions of, oh, where did you hear about that? Or what do you already know about that? Overall, it's important to avoid judgment and preaching, and that's part of that listening and asking questions piece. We never want to turn our kids away or turn them off from having conversations about us because we are judging them or lecturing to them because they won't respond super well to that. Using everyday opportunities like media is a great way to bring up a lot of topics about sex and sexuality. So next time you hear a song on the radio that talks about relationships or dating or sex, you could bring it up then. Or next time you see a Netflix show that's shows someone kissing, to have a conversation about that. Media is a really great jumping off point for a lot of conversations about sexuality. It's also important to know that having the sex talk is not just one talk. It's lots of little talks and little conversations all throughout many years of a child's development. It's also okay not to know. Sex and sexuality is constantly changing. There are new terms and facts that are coming out, and it's okay to not know. So be sure that you know what resources you can turn to, and we'll go over a few of those here in just a minute. if you don't know something. So it's always okay to revisit a conversation with your young person, or go ahead and look it up together, right? So it is okay not to know. So we wanted to end by giving you a list of some positive sexuality resources that you can use as parents for introducing these conversations or learning more about sexuality education. The first is highly recommended, and this is sexpositivefamilies.com. And they actually have a weekly e-newsletter that is a great way to introduce certain topics and get lots of tips. They also have book lists and trainings and workshops for parents about a range of sexuality topics. And they also provide age-appropriate guidance. So if you're not sure what is age-appropriate related to sex and sexuality, check out sexpositivefamilies.com. Amaze.org is another really great website, and it has a bunch of informative sexuality videos for kids. So we encourage using these videos for elementary school to middle school age kids, although there might be some that you could use for high school ages, but mostly it's for a younger audience. And in a really fun virtual or visual format, these videos go through a bunch of different sexuality topics and are also a great conversation starter. Our website, compassctr.org/parents, has a bunch of videos about how to have the talks. So we've offered a video series for parents covering tough topics like how to talk about where babies come from and how to talk about anatomy with your kids. So check that out as well. And then lastly, advocatesforyouth.org is a great resource site for parents and has a lot of health information guides. If you prefer books, there's a really great book called For Goodness Sex, Changing the Way We Talk to Teens About Sexuality, Values, and Health. And this is by Al Vernaccio, and it's a great introduction to a lot of these different topics. And then, like I said before, sexpositivefamilies.com has got a great sexuality book list for kids and teens as a way to introduce a variety of sexuality topics to young people. We have here provided our contact information, so please do contact us with any questions or concerns. Our emails are there. You can contact the Compass Center at tch@compassctr.org, and Haley is available at haley@ocrcc.org. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us, and we hope to see you again soon.